What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another mock draft Monday. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you guys smash that like button for me. Again, I appreciate everybody who has subscribed. At the time of recording, we are one away from 250 subscribers. So if you are new to the channel, please do me a favor. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the feedback that we got in the last mock draft as well. Did take into everybody's comments into consideration for this mock draft. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump on right into it with the Titans with the #1 pick. And I know last mock draft I went ahead and drafted Travis Hunter because, again, he's probably the #1 prospect in this year's draft, by far the best athlete in this year's draft. But I get you guys, I heard you guys, and you guys are probably right. Brian Callahan is going to want his own quarterback. Will Levis has been a little bit underwhelming. 2 years left on his deal. They'll probably just let that ride out, if not cut him soon. But I don't think Callahan really likes Will Levis as his quarterback for the future. With the offensive coordinator background that Callahan does have, I do believe he's going to want his own quarterback. I don't think that is Shedeur Sanders, despite him being my QB1. I do think Cam Ward is going to be the first quarterback off the board, just because we haven't heard any negatives in terms of a first-round grade. And Shedeur does come with baggage, if you want to call it that. Obviously, being Deion's child. But with that being said, I don't think I don't think Shedeur is the pick at #1. I do think Cam Ward is the first quarterback off the draft board, and which takes us to the Cleveland Browns. And again, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is the pick for the Browns either, because even with Ward off the board, I don't think that there is a drastic need for quarterback for the Browns. I don't think that they're going to be competing for the playoffs anytime soon. So I do think that you can go ahead and just draft a player that you think is going to be a cornerstone for your team, which is going to be Travis Hunter. They could be in the running for a quarterback in free agency because, again, guys like Kirk Cousins, guys like Drew Lock, Mac Jones, they're going to need a starting job next season. With the Achilles injury that Watson just dealt with, maybe you bring back Jameis Winston. I doubt it, but we'll have to see. With that being said, though, Travis Hunter just makes the most sense for Cleveland. He can play both sides for Cleveland as well. Again, Cleveland just doesn't have anything to lose at this point. Travis Hunter is a safety net pick for the Cleveland Browns. Which takes us into the New York Giants, and there is a lot of questions about where they're going to go with this pick. Sanders is a quarterback that I really like a lot, and I do think he can go in the top 5, just because, again, of the need for quarterback with some of these teams. Now, is he a quarterback that Brian Daboll likes? We'll have to go ahead and see. I know there has already been links as well with Shedeur to the Giants, so it kind of just makes the most sense, as at least right now, for the Giants to take Shedeur Sanders in the mock. As for my Patriots, I hear you guys. It's not in our DNA to really take a weapon in the first round. It's kind of more in our DNA to take a defensive cornerstone. And I think Abdul Carter is that pick for us. I think Abdul Carter can absolutely tear it up on our defense. He gives us the versatility at linebacker and edge. We already have Gonzo in the secondary. We got Kyle Duggar up top. I think Abdul Carter, just fits our DNA with the Patriots, and I think he's going to do really well. Plus, Mike Vrabel's the head coach, defensive-minded guy. It just makes a lot of sense for Abdul Carter to go at pick 4. We get into the Jaguars, and again, this is just a no-brainer for me. You're kind of going to want to take just the best offensive lineman available, Will Campbell being that player. Whether he plays tackle, whether he plays guard, it really doesn't matter for the Jaguars at least, because they need all the help that they can get on that offensive line, especially with keeping Trevor Lawrence safe in the future. Which takes us over to the Raiders, and they got a lot of holes to fill, to be honest. And they can have a lot of fun with this pick. And I got to be honest, I don't think they need to reach for a quarterback. I think you need to get yourself a big weapon, whether it's on offense or on defense. You can select a Tyrone McMillan, but I do think you already have 2 solid pass catchers with Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, who both went for 1,000 yards this season. I think you need to improve that secondary with this pick. With Will Johnson being available, I think that's the pick that the Raiders really need to make. Re-sign Moehrig. You got Hobbs, who's probably been the best cornerback in that room in the past, we'll say 2 years, 3 years maybe. So I think getting him a running mate like Will Johnson just makes a lot of sense, and Will Johnson can turn that defense up. Playing against quarterbacks like Herbert, Mahomes. You want guys in your secondary that you can trust and leave on islands and make plays for you. Will Johnson's one of those cats in this draft, which takes us over to the Jets. And at this point, I'm still very confused on where to go with this pick just because of all the speculation on what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Again, Wilson's still going to want that trade if Aaron Rodgers is quarterback next season. DJ Reed's probably going to test free agency, so do you want to go ahead and check out some of the cornerbacks? It might be a little early for any of the other cornerbacks to go, so maybe you go ahead and just take the best defensive lineman available. I think that makes the most sense for the Jets. Again, quarterback being the biggest need. Obviously, we got to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. But as of right now, I think the comfortable selection is defensive line. Mason Graham being probably one of the best pass rushers in this draft class. By far the best defensive lineman in this draft class. Well worth a top 10 pick to the Jets. Which takes us over to the Panthers, who honestly they got a fun pick. Despite not having a ton of needs, they have a fun pick. They already said they got their guy with Bryce Young, and I think wide receiver could be in play here. I know he's developed a nice, relationship with Coker and Leggett. Thielen still has a little bit of tread on the tires, but I think Bryce Young deserves a weapon that he can go ahead and develop with alongside Leggett and Coker. I don't really see either of those players being a true wide receiver one for your team, at least as of right now. Again, edge and cornerback do burn your biggest holes in terms of the depth chart, so edge could be in play here. Jack Sawyer's has easily played himself into the first round. Shamar Stewart being the biggest freak available at 6'6". Nick Scoren probably having the best grade. Mykel Williams and James Pierce offering the best versatility amongst the five. So edge could be in play here. But I think at the 8 pick, and I haven't done this yet, I do think that the Panthers could be in play for Tataro McMillan. Getting Bryce Young a weapon that he can build with is important. I know he's developed a nice relationship with Coker, which I've said already, but I really just don't see him being your wide receiver one. Tataro McMillan has wide receiver one abilities, and he comes from that Mike Evans cloth. That's a player that you want on your team. 6'5", knows how to box people out, knows how to use his body and frame, can pluck the ball out of cornerbacks' hands. He's a big-time weapon and well worth a top 10 pick. And Panthers can eat with a team that features Tataro McMillan, Xavier Leggett, Coker, Bryce Young, and depending who's in the backfield for you. As for the Saints, trenches are still going to be a focus here despite wide receiver being a need. I do think with Kelvin Banks still being available at tackle, that's going to be your pretty much safety net play here. Are you satisfied with Fuaga and Penning? Maybe. I like what Penning's doing right now. Fuaga has the potential to move inside to guard, so I think you can just go ahead and take care of the trenches. Again, I think protecting Alvin Kamara right now is your biggest focus. They're another team that could be in play for a quarterback a little bit later. Maybe you're not satisfied with Rattler. Clearly, you're not satisfied with Derek Carr. And if you are, you're crazy. But I think just getting a tackle to keep Alvin Kamara protected, keep that run game intact, is going to be the biggest option for the Saints. At least in the first round. Tight end, maybe, if you want to take Warren early. I don't see a defensive lineman going unless you're going to take an edge rusher. But, wide receiver maybe in play, but you got Olave, you got Shaheed. I think you have pieces there that you can still use. So I think just take care of that offensive line, take care of the trenches. Which, speaking of the trenches, is pretty much what the Bears need to do as well. They need someone, though, that can offer them a little bit more versatility. A guy like Gray Zabel and a guy like Jonas Sava'aniea offer you that versatility at guard and tackle. I like Jonas' game, and I like Gray Zabel's game, so it's really, honestly, a pick your poison. You can also dip into the CB room because, honestly, I don't think there's a lot to be proud of. In the secondary, you could take a look at some of the cornerbacks available if you want to get a running mate for Stevenson. But I think as of right now, I didn't really think about it, but maybe Ashton Jeanty in play? Nah, I wouldn't take Ashton Jeanty. I'm going to be honest, I think as of right now, I'm just going to go ahead and take Gray Zabel, who does give you some of the best versatility at guard and tackle in this year's draft, which takes us over to the Niners. A lot of people think that Niners are going to go offensive line. I think Niners go edge rusher here. I do think that they continue to beef up that defense because, again, they've seen a little bit of a decline this year. I know because they're my fantasy defense every year, but they did see a little bit of a decline. And I do think one of the most insane tandems that you can get in the league would be Jack Sawyer and Nick Bosa. Again, there's been rumors that they've flirted with getting, Joey Bosa to the Niners. If you don't get an edge rusher in free agency, I think that needs to be your first round target. Again, I think I had Shamar Stewart penciled in the last mock draft. We're going to go with Jack Sawyer on this one because I think him and Nick Bosa would tear it up in the NFC as the edge rushers for the San Francisco 49ers. As for the Cowboys, we're not going to move anything. We're going to continue to go with a running back. Gene T's still my RB1. It's not going to change. Cowboys are in dire need of a running back, and the pipeline from Boise to Dallas is actually insane. Like, I didn't know how many players go from Boise to Dallas, but there's a serious connection there. Moving into the Dolphins, Tyreek's gone, so obviously the wide receiver room burns a big hole. Or not gone yet, but he wants a trade. So he's going to be gone. Wide receiver room's going to burn that biggest hole. Do you want to get Ibuka? Do you want to get Burden? I'm not going to lie. I think you still need to focus on getting Tua. I know I looked at wide receivers in the last mock draft, but I do think you got to get Tua some protection. You just don't know how long you have Tua or how long left you have with Tua just because of all the concussions. And not just that, all the injuries that he's sustained outside of the head injuries. You have to worry. You spent all that money on him, so you might as well just go ahead and get him some more protection. No-brainer pick here. Dolphins just need to go ahead and select the best tackle available in the draft. Which takes us over to the Colts, who also have another fun pick. You can honestly get a tight end with Tyler Warren, or you can take a defensive back in Malachi Starks or Benjamin Morrison. I think Malachi Starks is probably going to be the play here. Again, I had Tyler Warren going last draft, but with a safety not being, signed through next year for the Colts, it just makes a lot of sense to get a rookie safety. That way you're at least set for 4 years and you don't have to worry about one safety on your roster. Malachi Starks is one of the best defensive players in this year's draft class, and I think he's well worth a top 15 pick. Some people even have Malachi Starks going in the top 10. I personally don't see a team that needs a safety that bad until we get to the Colts at pick 14, which takes us to the Falcons, and this is, again, another one of those picks that's a no-brainer for me. Got to take care of that edge. I wish you guys would have did it last draft. That's neither here nor there. But with this draft and the talent at edge, you need to go ahead and take care of that position. James Pierce gives you the versatility. Mykel Williams at this point gives you probably the best upside. Nick Scorton has the best grade right now. Shamar Stewart being the biggest freak at 6'6". Kind of a pick your poison on what you want to go with. I think I probably want to go with Mykel Williams here just because of all the versatile alignment that he has. James Pierce's versatility on the line is really good, but Mykel gives you a little bit of linebacker versatility as well. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Mykel here. I mean, not only that, he's been regarded for his high IQ, so I think Mykel Williams is just a awesome pick right here at 15, which takes us to the Arizona Cardinals. No-brainer here. Just go ahead and get Kyler Murray, the best tackle available. Get him some protection. The weapons are there. Honestly, everything's there for the Cardinals except the offensive line. And having some of the crazy pass rushers that you have to face in the NFC, you want to go ahead and get the best protection available for Kyler, which takes us to the Bengals. And I said it before, wide receiver wasn't a need, but with T. Higgins departing, Jeremy Burton getting into his fiasco, Iosova being probably the only one with upside left in that room, Jamar Chase is going to get a huge payday, so you'll still have him on the roster. I do think you got to get Jamar Chase a running mate. I think Iosova is a great wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 2 upside, but I think just with some of the wide receivers that are available right now, you got to get another weapon for Joe Burrow. And really looking at some of these receivers and thinking Joe Burrow is going to throw to them is actually insane. Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, you could get the fastest receiver if you want in Isaiah Bond. Tez Johnson might play his way into the first, depending on how well he does in the Senior Bowl and stuff like that. But I think as of right now, Emeka Egbuka going to the Bengals would be absolutely dangerous next to Jamar Chase. Having a quarterback like Joe Burrow throw to him would be absolutely insane, and they would have a scary offense in the AFC North for sure. As for the Seahawks, again, this is another no-brainer. They're probably going to be another team, though, that does need someone that gives you the versatility at guard and tackle. And just looking at the board, Jonas Savanaia is probably going to be the best tackle available, especially in terms of versatility. Gives you right guard, right tackle, and left tackle alignment. And he's probably the best offensive lineman available at that point just because of the versatility that he does offer. You could have went ahead and got a guy like Wyatt Millum or Ursary who had high grades. But I just think because of the versatility and the need at right guard and right tackle for the Seahawks, Jonah S. just makes a lot of sense. Now, I know we talked, or at least I brought it up 2 picks ago, about Tez Johnson potentially playing his way into the first. I think Bo Nix played extremely well this season, and I hated during his pre-draft process. That was my bad. But I think he's played well enough to go to the front office and say, hey, this is my guy. This is who I want to play with. Let's go ahead and draft him. Tez Johnson has all the goods to be a first-round wide receiver. Obviously, with Luther Burden available, obviously with Isaiah Bond available. Some people are going to say I'm crazy. Golden could potentially find himself in the first round. But I think Bo Nix is going to want his guy. And we've seen what happens when quarterbacks play with their guy. Like, they get comfortable, they get in their zone, and it gets absolutely spooky. I feel like they were just a couple pieces away from, making a serious playoff push. Got into the playoffs, which was, kudos to them. But I do think that they're a couple pieces away. You can go ahead and take Bo Nix's guy. Again, Bo Nix has played well enough to say, hey, this is who I want to play with. If you don't know the connection between him and Tez Johnson, they did live together, as well as play college football together. I do think Tez Johnson is well worth a first-round pick. Go ahead and cut on the tape if you don't believe me. Which takes us to the Tampa Bay Bucks. And just continuing to look at the depth chart as much as I dive into it, it's really just safety and cornerback that need the most help. And with probably the third best cornerback available, it just makes a lot of sense to go with Benjamin Morrison. I hate to see Savone Ravel fall down draft boards, but I know the injury is starting to look a little bit spooky. Scouts don't know if he's going to be able to perform at the combine, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in these next couple months with Savone Ravel. So I think Benjamin Morrison is probably going to be the safety net pick at cornerback from Notre Dame, one of the most talented corners in this class, in the nation, really. One of the few corners that you could leave on an island comfortably and just not really have to worry about. Which takes us to the Steelers. Again, Pickens is unhappy. I don't see that wide receiver room being too impressive. Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson. Nice wide receiver 3 guys, but there's not really a true one. And with Pickens being disgruntled, there's a chance that he probably leaves soon. So why not go ahead and get yourself a receiver in this year's draft? Again, Golden could find himself going in the first. Bond has been a pick that I went with here a couple times. But I think with Luther Burden available at pick 21, and the fact that he slid down this board, that's kind of a gift for the Steelers. So Luther Burden going to the Steelers, which I've penciled in so many times, just makes a lot of sense, to be completely honest with you. And we go ahead and look at the Rams, and they're another team that I feel like is just 1 or 2 pieces away from getting back into a deep playoff push, especially in the secondary. Now, if we look at some of these corners available, Savone Ravel, again, a guy that I think could still go in the first round. We'll have to see what happens with his injury. Jedi Barron being the Thorpe winner. A lot of people like him going in the first round. I like the safety play in LA, so I don't think that's a big issue. You could go with Tyler Warren because he is available and he's one of the best offensive weapons in this year's NFL draft. I think he'd probably help the Rams a lot just because you wouldn't have to worry, or you'd at least be able to get a little bit of workload off of Puka and Cooper Kupp's shoulders. Kyron Williams played extremely well this season. Higbee played so-so. So I think being able to get an upgrade at tight end could be an option. Do you like some of the tackle prospects available? I would go with Mullum or Ursary at this point. Again, cornerback could be in play if you like Jahdae Barron. It's really a pick your poison. They're kind of a team that does have a fun pick. And I think as of right now, with who's on the board, I'm going to go with Tyler Warren. Because Tyler Warren on that offense, you look at that, you think about that offense now, you got Stafford at the helm. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Tyler Warren, and then Kyron Williams at running back. That sounds like a dangerous offense if you ask me, especially with how coveted the tight end position has been in the league in the past 2 to 3 years. I think we do see a couple of tight ends go in this year's draft. And where I'm going with that is we might see back-to-back tight ends go because that's probably one of the biggest needs for the Chargers. And I know Ladd McConkey's made a lot of noise at the slot position. That's great for their wide receiver room. But as far as their tight end room, I mean, Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst, like, you signed them, but they didn't really do anything for you. Running back, you could maybe dip your fingers into the running backs here, but I think you can go ahead and grab one in the second round. So I think just tight end makes a lot of sense here. I don't think there's going to be a lot of good tight ends past maybe mid-second round. So I think getting a guy like Colston Loveland, who again is a Michigan guy. We know John Harbaugh loves his Michigan players. So there's a chance we see Colston Loveland go in this first round as well. Which takes us over to the Packers. And with Jair Alexander probably gone, Keyshawn Nixon is okay at nickel. I'm not sold on them. Again, we've seen what happened in the playoffs as well. I'm not sold on that secondary. I think they need a lot of help. So it really depends on, what you want to do. Do you want to risk that injury with Savon Ravel? I like Savon Ravel's tape. I think he offers a lot of upside at the cornerback position, but again, he's falling down the boards, and I hate to do this, but I think Jedi Barron is just the safety net option at cornerback. Now, you could look at the edges with Nick Scorton available and it being a need. Shamar Stewart also available. Again, he's that 6'6", genetic freak in this year's draft. I think we probably will go edge. I know I looked at the cornerbacks in a couple of mock drafts for the Packers, but I think with Nick Scorton available here, it just makes a lot of sense to beef up that defense. Taking us over to the Texans, I really got to be honest, I think offensive line is just the easiest way to go about this. I do think the Texans need all the help that they can get on the offensive line. Laramie Tunsil's getting up there in age. Shaq Mason likely on his way out. You could move Laramie Tunsil inside to guard, get yourself a nice solid tackle here. If you want somebody with somewhat versatility, you're probably going to go with Wyatt Mullum. But I'm going to be honest, I'd go with Ursary right here just because if you want a full-time tackle, he's probably going to be the best one available. Again, I would move Tunsil inside to guard and put Ursary at tackle. Running back could also be in play, although I think Mixon's playing very well. I think he played himself into an extension. Wide receiver, maybe. I guess we'll have to see how it goes with these next couple of playoff games. But I think as of right now, I would just take an offensive tackle just to be on the safe side for the Texans. As for the Commanders, who are playing really well, I still think wide receiver is in play. Because as we've seen in the playoffs, it's really only been Scary Terry. Zach Ertz has played so-so. But Scary Terry is pretty much their focal point on offense. With the wide receivers available, again, Golden played really well, finished off the season tremendously for Texas. I just really have Isaiah Bond going before him because of the speed. I think he's going to test extremely well at the combine. He's going to be the fastest receiver in this year's NFL draft, I feel like. There's a chance that he goes before his Longhorn brother in Matthew Golden. Now, as for the Ravens, I really do think it's just secondary. Like, you have to focus on getting another corner. Marlon Humphreys on a decline. Nate Wiggins is playing very well. I want to get someone that can be a true CB1, and I think that's going to be Jedi Barron at that point. Again, I like Savon Ravel, but unfortunately, we do have to take into account the injuries. So I don't think we're going to see Savon Ravel's name called in the first round, which it hurts my heart to say because I like his tape. I like everything that the kid put out, but unfortunately, with all the question marks around that injury, we're going to have to see what happens in these next couple of months. As for the Vikings, I think running back and defensive linemen are probably going to be in play here, really depending on who's available. Kenneth Grant being the next best available defensive lineman obviously opens up your eyes, but I do think running back is going to be the position that needs the most help. We understand how NFL values running backs. Aaron Jones Sr. now turned 30 last month. I do think they're going to need another running back in that room. Omarion Hampton played really well. Scatabo has probably had the most upside ending off the season. Dylan Sampson as well. Caleb Johnson was my RB2, still my RB2 in this year's draft class, but I do think Omarion Hampton ends up going in the first round to the Vikings. And if not, he is going to be the second running back taken in this year's NFL draft. Just because of how he's valued as a prospect. And for the Bills, I was honestly thinking wide receiver, but Keon Coleman's been playing really well. I do think next year he probably ascends into that wide receiver one role. Again, you still got Shakir there in the slot. I think you just go ahead and take care of the linebacker position. Jalen Walker being available, best linebacker available. Not my linebacker one. My linebacker one is Jahad Campbell because of all the versatility he gives you. I think he has a better tape than Jalen Walker. Now, that is honestly up for debate. You guys can honestly let me know in the comments below. Who do you guys think has a better tape? Jahad Campbell or Jalen Walker? But I think as of right now, because of where he's valued, Jalen Walker just makes a lot of sense. Get the defense some help for the Bills. I don't think wide receiver is going to be as big as a need as we think. As for the Eagles, I did take into consideration what some people said. Linebacker and edge are probably going to be the biggest need, right? So you're probably going to want somebody that offers you versatility. That's going to be James Pierce Jr. Shamar Stewart being 6'6" is obviously the prototypical size. Not everybody's going to want that prototypical size if it doesn't pan out. And James Pierce offers you that versatility that you want on your defense. So we'll definitely have to see what the Eagles go ahead and do there. But again, I did take into consideration what you guys said. Edge and linebacker are probably going to be the biggest need for the Eagles going into this year's NFL draft. Which leaves us to the two teams that are always the two hardest to mock for, especially the Chiefs, because you never know what they're going to do, where they're going to go. Obviously, tight end could be in play here. Tackle could be in play here. I'm not too sure about the big need for linebacker, although there is going to be a couple of holes. Jahad Campbell maybe goes in the first round, but I think Chiefs can honestly just focus on the trenches with this pick here and just focus on everything else in the second and third, especially because in the third, I think they have 2 or 3 picks. I think defensive line, with Kenneth Grant available here at pick 31, going to make a lot of sense for the Chiefs to go ahead and select. As for the Lions, they're a team that it's just been so hard to decide what they should do. Again, I said it last mock draft. Do you like your 1-2 punch of Amik Robertson and Terrion Arnold, or do you want to get a running mate for Hutchinson? Shamar Stewart having, the 6'6" size, that could be what Dan Campbell licks his chops at. Cornerback could be available as we continue to look at it. Savon Ravel's going to fly down. I don't see Trey Amos as a first-round cornerback. I think safety net pick option here is probably going to be Shamar Stewart. And Shamar Stewart can be extremely dangerous on the Detroit Lions with his size, especially playing for a coach like Dan Campbell. Yeah, it can be absolutely spooky in Detroit. But with that being said, here's what our first round mock draft looks like for this week's NFL mock. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Let me know if you think anybody is too high or too low. Let me know who you guys think your team is going to draft so we can go ahead and take it into consideration for next video. As always, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Be sure to comment below to help me boost the algorithm. Make sure you're hitting that sub button. I will see you guys next video. Peace.